All right, today we're going to be detectives. We're diving into a legal puzzle from the Talmud that's about 2,000 years old. And our case, it's all about a priest who's stuck in this weird kind of limbo. He's not quite pure, but he's not totally impure either. And we're going to figure out why that tiny detail matters so much.
So let's meet our person of interest, the Tevol Yom. Now, what does that mean? Well, imagine a priest who was ritually impure for some reason. He's done the right thing, he's gone to the ritual bath, the mikvah, to get pure again. But, and this is the big catch, the purification process isn't actually complete until the sun goes down. So all day long, he's in this strange in-between state.
Now, the Mishnah, which is this ancient book of Jewish law, gives us the rule that kicks this whole investigation off. And it's super clear. If this priest, our Tevol Yom, tries to perform a temple service while he's in that temporary state, that service is invalid. It's desecrated. It just doesn't count. And right here, this is where the real detective work starts. You see, for the ancient rabbis, it wasn't enough to just have a rule. They were legal scholars. They needed to find the proof, the source, straight from the Torah itself. So the big question becomes, where's the evidence? Okay, so let's follow the trail. The Talmud starts tracking down its first clue, and the search begins with a rabbi named Simai. He's got an idea about a verse in the book of Leviticus. So Rabbi Simai puts this verse on the table as our first piece of evidence. It says, "Priests shall be sacred and shall not desecrate the name of their God." I mean, at first glance, that seems pretty open and shut, right? It's a direct command to priests. But you know, in the world of Talmudic logic, the obvious answer is almost never the final one. And boom, we hit our first snag. See, the Talmudic mind is incredibly precise. The most obvious way to read this verse, that it's talking about a priest who is just flat out 100% impure, well, that's already taken care of. There's a different verse somewhere else in the Torah that covers that exact situation. And for these scholars, the Torah has zero wasted words. So this verse has to be teaching us something new. So what do? You use a classic process of elimination. If the verse isn't talking about a fully pure priest, and it's not about a fully impure priest, well, what's left? It has to be referring to our guy in the middle, the Tevol Yom. It's a really neat piece of logic, but it's still not quite a smoking gun. The Talmud needs something more concrete. And here it is. This is the breakthrough moment. The Talmudic detectives find the exact same Hebrew root word for desecrate, yachalelu, in two totally different places. As you can see here, one verse is about the temple service, and the other is about priests eating their special food, the teruma. This is just a brilliant example of how this ancient legal system works. The logic is so elegant. Everyone already agrees that a Tevol Yom is not allowed to eat truma. That was a settled rule. So, since the Torah uses the exact same word, desecrate, for both eating that sacred food and for performing the temple service, the two laws must be linked. If he desecrates one, he desecrates the other. Case closed, right? Well, just when you think you've got it all figured out, the plot thickens. A new character, the sage Rabbah, steps in and basically says, "Hold on, everyone, this is way more complicated than it looks." So Rabbah just blows the whole case wide open. He points out that the Torah seems to have separate, specific laws for not one, but three different kinds of priests who are in a state of incompletion. And his question is sharp. Why? Is the Torah being redundant? I mean, this goes right to the heart of their entire philosophy. If the Torah is a perfect divine text, it wouldn't waste ink on three separate laws if one or two would do the job. So let's meet our new lineup of suspects. First, you've got the Tameh. He's fully impure. Then there's our original guy, the Tevol Yom, who's just waiting for sunset. And finally, the newcomer, the Mehusar Kippurim. Now this priest has done his immersion, but he's still missing one final step. He has to bring a specific offering. Think of it like you've finished a marathon, but you haven't gone up to the podium to actually get your medal yet. Each one is incomplete, but in their own unique way. All right, time for the next phase of the investigation. Rabbah has thrown down the gauntlet. Is the Torah just repeating itself, or is there some hidden logic here that we're just not seeing yet? So the Talmud does what it does best. It runs a thought experiment. The question is pretty straightforward. Could we get by with just two of these laws and figure out the third one ourselves? Okay, for our first test run, let's pretend the Torah never told us the rule for the Mechasar Kippurim. Could we logically figure it out from the other two? And the answer comes back real quick. Nope, can't be done. The logic hits a wall because our two source cases, the fully impure priest and the Tevol Yom, they share a very specific feature that our third guy doesn't.
Both of them are absolutely forbidden from eating that sacred priestly food, the teruma.
And that's the fatal flaw in the argument. Our third priest, the one who just needs to bring an offering, he is actually allowed to eat the teruma. And because of that critical difference, there's no way to build a logical bridge from the first two cases to this one. The whole argument just falls apart. So that's one down. The Torah definitely needed a separate law for him. Okay, so that line of reasoning hit a total brick wall. But the Talmud never gives up. It just dusts itself off and tries a different angle. What if we try to derive a different one of the three? So the Talmud proposes a new test. Let's flip the variables. What if the Torah only gave us the rules for the fully impure priest and the one who needs an offering? Could we then logically figure out the rule for our original suspect, the Tevel Yo? Now, this time, it actually seems like it might work. You could try to argue that the impure priest and the one needing an offering are different from the Tevel Yom, maybe because they're both lacking in action, while he's just passively waiting. But the Talmud dismisses that as a pretty weak argument. At the end of the day, all three of them are in a state of incompletion. So it looks like we found it, a genuine redundancy in the text. It really seems like the law for the Tevel Yom could have been derived, but then comes the final brilliant twist. And this is it. The big reveal. The whole puzzle gets solved right here in this final section, where one tiny, almost hidden detail changes absolutely everything. The entire solution hinges on a hidden assumption that we've all been making this whole time. We've been treating the Mekasar Kippurim, all those priests who need to bring an offering, as if they're all the same. But they're not. The Talmud reveals that the reason why a priest needs to bring that offering makes all the difference in the world. This chart here really shows the crucial point. The Talmud zeroes in on a very specific case, a Mechus Kippurim who became impure from a particularly severe condition known as a Zav. And as you can see, the impurity strength of this specific guy is considered way, way higher than that of our regular Tevel Yom. He's just in a completely different league of impurity. And that is the solution. That's the whole thing. The logical derivation fails again, but for this incredibly subtle reason. See, there's a fundamental rule in this kind of logic. You cannot learn a rule for a less severe case from a more severe one. And because the impurity of this specific Mekesher Kippurim is considered more stringent than the Tevel Yoms, you can't use him as a source. And just like that, the puzzle is solved. All three laws are necessary, they are distinct, and the Torah's text is proven to be perfectly economical, with not a single wasted word. You know, this 2,000-year-old detective story shows how a single, unstated assumption, the idea that all priests needing an offering were identical, was the key to the entire logical system. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What are the hidden assumptions we rely on in our own lives, in our own arguments, that are shaping our conclusions in ways we don't even realize?